Happy Mock Draft Monday. The next hour will be dedicated to Mike Renner's first round mock. This is as of Monday, October 20th. It's subject to change between now and April 2026. I will allow it, but it's always fun to take an early look at the prospects who are popping up in the college football season. Let's welcome in the narrator of the mock draft. We have Mike Renner, who is here with us, and then, of course, Ryan Wilson here to add some color to this conversation. Guys, let's go ahead and get into it, starting with the #1 overall pick that belongs to the New York Jets. Congratulations, guys. You will select Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza. If we remember back to 2 weeks ago when we did this exercise with Ryan, he had Dante Moore, but you both agreed that the Jets will take a quarterback here. Mike, why Mendoza with the pick?
That was before they went head-to-head, and I was with Ryan. I was like, you know, Dante Moore's kind of balling, but then Mendoza won the head-to-head matchup. He follows it up the next week with one of the best games of his career, and he just has the cleanest profile right now. If you're the Jets, you can't afford to take another swing on like a guy who's a one-year wonder sort of player. They've done that before. It didn't work out great. You need a guy who has this consistent progression that you feel very safe about what he'll be at the next level. And that's how I feel about Mendoza. That 21-2 touchdown to interception ratio, 73.5 completion percentage. He's accurate. He's a quick decision maker. His game should translate to the league. Now, they're going to have to change up their offense. It's going to have to look different, but we may see a lot different here in New York after the way this season's gone for the Jets.
Yeah, Fernando Mendoza, definitely the better quarterback in that matchup, but Dante Moore is still in your mock. You'll have to stay tuned to see where he lands. But let's go to the #2 pick. The New Orleans Saints select Miami edge Ruben Bain Jr. Ryan, what impact can he make early on?
Oh, he'll make an immediate impact. He is a bowling ball of butcher knives. Here's the thing about Ruben Bain Jr., and I'm with Mike. I had him going #2 when we did this exercise a few weeks ago. The pause is this, guys. When you talk to folks around the league, here's what's going to happen. He's going to be 6'2" and change and 275, which you know. His arms are probably going to be shorter than 31 inches, and if you know anything about the length of edge rushers or offensive linemen, that's a death sentence. And I've heard like late first, early second round when you talk to teams. But if you watch the tape, he is a top 5 player all day long. And he is so incredibly exciting with the way in which he plays. He's going to win with a bull rush every time because of the low center of gravity. But he does have an array of pass rush moves. And the Saints could certainly use edge rush help. The question is going to become, is he worth a top 5 pick because of the physical shortcomings historically, or does he slip a little bit later in the first round? Sometimes I think we overthink this thing. Ruben Bain Jr. has played like a top 5 pick, and I have absolutely no issue with him going this high, but I'm guessing this is a conversation we're going to have as we get through the draft process once the spring rolls around.
I want to make sure the record shows that you were the first one to refer to him as a bowling ball full of knives. I think that's exactly what I want in edge rusher. Speaking of that position, at #3, the Tennessee Titans select Auburn edge Keldric Faulk. What makes him great?
Yeah, no length concerns with Keldric Faulk. This is a guy who is everything you want from a physical perspective for a defensive end at the NFL level. And he's that kind of hybrid defender at 6'6", 285. That's really taking the league by storm, that everyone wants. The guy who could play outside and also inside and never really look out of place and still make an impact at both spots. And now for the Titans, this is where need comes into play. They desperately need pass rushers. They basically have a who's who on the roster right now of journeyman edge rushers. They don't have a young guy even developing there in tow. So you need someone. This is a great developmental project. He's not the pass rusher that Ruben Bain is right now, but he has a guy whose tools you could see growing into year 2, year 3, year 4, and becoming an elite guy at the position because the Titans need impact players. This is a guy who could grow into one.
At #4, the Miami Dolphins will select Clemson defensive lineman Peter Woods. A lot of big defenders already off the board. Ryan, why do you think he's a good fit for the Fins?
He's explosive, and the motor with which he plays reminds me a little bit of Mike Green coming out of Marshall last year. Mike lasted until the second round because of off-field issues. But the issue with Clemson now is the wins and losses, and this isn't all on Peter Woods, certainly. But he has played at an incredibly high level, and here's the thing. If he were in last year's draft class, he would have gone probably before Mason Graham, who went 5th overall. The other thing about Peter Woods is he can line up anywhere. He can play off the edge. He can play in the middle. They use him at running back sometimes. So the versatility is there. Unfortunately, he can't play quarterback or offensive line. But I don't think he's hurt himself at all, even though the Clemson Tigers are certainly not where they want to be at this point in the process. He's a first-round talent. And like I said, in last year's draft class, he would have been the first defensive lineman off the board.
and he will not be the first Clemson player taken in this mock draft as well, which makes that record even more confounding. But let's go to number 5. Las Vegas Raiders will select Oregon quarterback Dante Moore. I told you he was coming, Mike. You think Moore is the second best QB in this draft, or is this more kind of a matter of fit?
Yeah, I do. I think he's been, from start to finish, outside that Indiana game, awesome. And the tools are everything you want. Such an easy throw to the football. He's averaging 9 yards per attempt this season, and he had a massive bounce-back game against Rutgers. Yeah, it was tough. The 6 sacks, they were ugly in that game. But every other game, those haven't really been an issue. So really his first test of a big game, first of many this season, because Oregon's going to be in contention all the way through to the playoff and maybe into the national championship with how good this team is, because we're going to see a couple other guys of his teammates at the end of this first round. But Dante Moore, he just has that easiness with which he plays that I love. And if you're going to the Las Vegas Raiders right now, you don't need to start right away. Geno Smith won't be there long, but he'll definitely be there next season. So you get to stay on the bench for a little bit while you develop, and then obviously take over as starter once Geno's gone.
At number 6, the New York Giants will select Miami offensive tackle Francis Mauigoa. And Ryan, you actually had Utah offensive tackle Spencer Fano as your number 1 tackle the last time that we did this. So what's maybe the argument for Mauigoa here?
Oh, he's an earth mover, and he is absolutely dominant in the run game. He's actually a pretty good pass protector as well. And whichever one you choose, the right side is where they desperately need help in New York. Andrew Thomas, their left tackle, is playing at a pretty high level coming back from injury, but they have a ton of other issues. Holding on to the lead, it happens to be one of them if they're in Denver. But I think solidifying that offensive line, especially on the right side with how well Mauigoa has played this year, would be an easy choice here. It feels like Jackson Dart's the guy. It hasn't been pretty with Jackson Dart, but the results have mostly been there, and perhaps maybe even surprising. But I think Francis Mauigoa is a guy that you pencil in right away. He's going to be dominant in the run game. I think he's technically sound enough to play in pass protection and be successful at it early on as well.
Built like a refrigerator, too. My goodness, those photos going through. Let's go to number 7, though. The Carolina Panthers will select Ohio State safety Caleb Downs. He was the number 1 overall safety coming out of high school, number 1 safety in the portal, and now the number 1 safety in the draft. He's just got that staying power, Mike.
Yeah, he's just good. I mean, at everything you could ask about the safety position, this guy does, and does at a high level. And for the Carolina Panthers, who they just need like playmakers on the back end. You could get a corner, you could get a safety, you could get a linebacker here. It doesn't really matter. But to me, Downs is the safest. You need someone. You need a hit on this pick is what they need. And Caleb Downs is just a hit all day, every day. This season, 23 targets, only 88 yards allowed on them. That's less than 4 yards per target. And yeah, you could say safeties are devalued. You haven't had a safety go top 10 since 2017, Jamal Adams. But 1, Caleb Downs is that good. And 2, when you get an elite safety, when you get a Kyle Hamilton, it means you get to pay them less on their second deal. It actually means you get a bargain because they're making a bigger impact than what the pay scale suggests. I think Downs is that sort of guy. And if you do too, you draft him top 10.
Yeah, if you're selecting 7th overall, you want that guy to come in and make a difference for you immediately. How about number 8? We got the Cleveland Browns selecting here. They go with Arizona State wide receiver Jordyn Tyson. You both agree that he is the first wide receiver off the board. Ryan, why?
You know, it's funny that we talk about the quarterback class not having a Joe Burrow that sticks out as we sit here. The wide receiver class is sort of similar in that there's no Malik Neighbors or Jamar Chase. Jordyn Tyson is doing his part to make it clear that he is, in fact, wide receiver 1, and this feels about the range in which he'll go off. Also, the Cleveland Browns desperately need help at wide receiver. Unless Jerry Jeudy's playing in the Dolphins, he has not been the wide receiver 1 that they need. They're 2 leading receivers are, in fact, tight ends, and one of them is a rookie. Jordyn Tyson plays much bigger than 6'1". He's a long strider with legit deep speed, but he also has some short area juice that allows him to run those short and intermediate routes and run away from guys. Short area quickness. He's incredibly strong at the catch point. He will run through arm tackles. All things that feel like it will make life easier for whoever the quarterback happens to be in Cleveland next year, whether it's Dylan Gabriel or someone else. But Jordyn Tyson has certainly done a lot to help himself this season, and it would check a huge box for the Cleveland Browns, who have real needs at the wide receiver position.
You mentioned it. Whoever is playing quarterback will surely love to have a Jordyn Tyson to throw to. Let's go ahead and recap the first pick through the 8th pick. 2 quarterbacks off the board here. Different order than from Ryan Wilson's mock 2 weeks ago, but as we pointed out, that was before these two actually shared a field, which made it very easy to compare and contrast. Also, quite a few big guys on defense go there in the top 8. You can never go wrong there. Well, last year, Ashton Jeanty was the number 6 pick in the draft. Still haven't had an RB taken yet in this mock. Oh, but it's coming. Find out where Jeremiyah Love lands. That's next. Welcome back into HQ Spotlight on this mock draft Monday. We are working our way through Mike Renner's mock draft, and Ryan Wilson is also here with us to help break down some of these prospects. Let's go to the number 9 overall pick that belongs to the Arizona Cardinals, and they will select Utah offensive tackle Spencer Fano. Ryan, you had him as the top tackle, but Mike, why is it consensus, though, that he is a top 10 pick?
It's just because he's good. I mean, like, you watch his tape, and his run blocking to me is the best in this draft class so far and away. He is a great zone run blocker. He has great feet. He uses his hands extremely well. He can generate force at the point of contact. And, yeah, he has short arms. He probably is going to be a guard at the next level. That's why I had Francis Mauigoa jumping him, because the Giants probably don't really need a guard, whereas the Cardinals do. The Cardinals just need good players along that offensive line. You've seen it take a massive step back without Clayton Adams, their offensive line coach. So getting a guy who is probably the safest thing in this offensive line class is something I'm interested in, even if it's not an offensive tackle. Even if, it's not replacing Jonah Williams, who you just saw get dominated by Micah Parsons on Sunday. So Cardinals just need good players, especially on the offensive side of the ball at this point. Fano's a good player.
Just to clarify, is there a specific position you see him with tackle?
Probably
guard,
right guard.
Right guard. Okay.
Probably right.
All right, good to know. Let's go to the number 10 pick. Cincinnati Bengals select Tennessee cornerback Jermod McCoy. Mike, way higher on him than you, Ryan. And it's not anything he did recently because he hasn't played. This is spoken from a Tennessee fan who would love to see him in our secondary. What are you seeing, though, from McCoy?
Yeah, and the only reason I had him a little bit lower is because he hasn't played, right, Emily? So he had the ACL in January. We'll see if he comes back this year or not. But his tape is really good. He is physical. He is a long strider. He is great in coverage down the field, and he will come and pop you in run support. And that feels like not only what you would like your cornerbacks to do if you're Cincinnati, but what they have lacked for the most part, unless they're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, apparently. So, yeah, he makes a ton of sense in Cincinnati, where that defense has been beleaguered for years, not just this year or prior years, but it's been that way for quite a while. And we'll see what happens. Like, an ACL is not an end-all, be-all, and if he is healthy enough during the pre-draft process, even if he doesn't play this year, and he tests well and he interviews well, he's going to be a first-round pick. And then the question becomes, as Mike's mock draft alludes, how high does he end up going? Because he has all the physical tools you want in your number 1 cornerback.
At number 11, the Minnesota Vikings select Ohio State linebacker Arvell Reese. How do we think about positional value versus talent upside when we're going for a linebacker here, Mike?
Yeah, it's a difficult conversation with a guy like Arvell Reese because he kind of plays both. You don't see a lot of guys that can bridge that gap, but he can play both off-ball and on-ball linebacker. He can rush the passer, does so at a high level, and not just like he blitzes. This guy goes one-on-one versus offensive tackles and wins consistently. He's got the frame of a defensive end, but he's also a guy that can actually drop into coverage. He can really cover some ground at the second level. So I don't think you want to waste that versatility at the next level. And that's why Brian Flores is like the perfect guy to bridge that gap. That's what he does. He wants fluid players in his front seven and his back seven, but front seven specifically, who can wear a lot of different hats. This is just a match made in heaven. This front seven's already very scary. If you added Arvell Reese to it, it would be amongst the best in the NFL.
Yeah, Brian Flores not necessarily making this pick, but I'm sure he would be 100% on board if that's who the front office decides to go with. Let's go to number 12. Chicago Bears select Clemson edge T.J. Parker, second Clemson defender off the board. I would love to ask you, Ryan, how they have a losing record this season, but I have to ask, what are your thoughts on Parker as a prospect?
Oh, he's electric, and he is a high motor guy with a ton of juice coming off the edge. And it's funny, you think about him and Peter Woods, and you compare him with Brian Brzee coming out and Myles Murphy. They're better than Brzee and Murphy, and Brzee is a really good football player. Murphy's growing into that role. And even going back a little further, Christian Wilkins and Cleve Farrell, this group is better than that group, in my opinion, as well. So they're both going to be first-round picks. They both could very, very easily be top 12 picks here. And in Chicago, Montez Sweat will be getting some help on the other side with T.J. Parker, who is as juiced up as they come, coming off the edge. Again, not a great season for Clemson, but I don't think that's necessarily a poor reflection on the two guys we've talked about here, and Woods and Parker, and more an issue with the overall direction of that program's going, if you ask Dabo about it.
Yeah, we'll ask him about it later. Let's continue to go through this mock draft. At number 13, the Washington Commanders, another edge. They'll select Texas Tech edge David Bailey. He was not in Ryan's first-round mock that we did 2 weeks ago. He had the other edge, Romello Height. So how do you maybe compare these two? I'm sure they'll get compared and contrasted next spring.
Bailey's just a little bit more tuned up, and I think he has a little bit more prototypical size, but you're drafting him to be a pass rush only kind of guy. And if you're the Commanders, that's what you need. You need someone who can attack opposing quarterbacks. They are kind of old and slow in that front seven, and it shows because Dan Quinn wants athletes like this. He wants to stunt guys. He wants to create chaos with that front seven. They just can't do it on a consistent basis. Bailey can, leads the FBS with 48 pressures, leads the FBS with 10.5 sacks. That's the kind of guy you want when you got Jaden Daniels on the other side of football.
Certainly. Number 14, the Dallas Cowboys will select Notre Dame running back Jeremiyah Love. We are already seeing what last year's first-round pick is doing immediately for the Raiders. So what do you anticipate seeing from Love as a rookie, Ryan?
I love this pick, and you might say, well, the Cowboys need help defensively. Apparently they can win games without Micah Parsons, and they have another first-round pick by virtue of that Micah Parsons trade. And after what Jeremiyah Love did to USC, and we've seen glimpses of that throughout the season and his career, it certainly makes a lot of sense that he would land in Dallas. Notwithstanding the fact that Javonte Williams is suddenly playing like he's at UNC again in the last few weeks. But you can never have enough running backs. Dak Prescott is playing at MVP level. George Pickens might be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. So if you can't stop him defensively, score 44 points. And that's what Dallas did yesterday against the Commanders. And Jeremiyah Love certainly helps you get there, because not only can he run the ball at a high clip, and again, we saw that Saturday, but he's a threat out of the backfield as a receiver as well. So I have no issue with this pick. 14 feels like it might be too low when you watch Love play, especially as you mentioned, Genty with 6 overall last year. And I think the Cowboys offense somehow gets better with the addition of Jeremiyah Love.
There you have it. The first running back is off the board in Jeremiyah Love. Let's recap those picks before we move on to the next section. We got a pair of edges as well. A linebacker, a corner make up the defensive picks, and a solid tackle from Utah, Spencer Fano, going to the Cardinals. All smart picks, but let's get some playmakers out there. 3 receivers will be taken in the next part of this mock draft, so find out who goes where when Mock Draft Monday continues right here on CBS Sports Network. Back here on HQ Spotlight, working our way through Mike Renner's mock draft. Ryan Wilson here to add some color to the conversation. And guys, we're starting back up at number 15. That's where the Rams, they get the pick from the Falcons, and they will select Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. It is consensus between you two. You both agree that the Rams will select Simpson here. So I got to ask, I mean, what makes him such a Sean McVay quarterback?
I think it's just the way he's able to operate the full offense there at Alabama. Kalen DeBoer's offense, you see him making NFL throws every single week. And you see him able to handle pressure. You see him be technically sound. But then there's also the fact that he's only played 1 year of football. So he might not be the best guy to toss in right away. He might want to go to a spot where he kind of gets a red shirt. And with where they're at with Matthew Stafford, it's like the Immortal Chambers work so far. Who knows how long it's going to work there? Who knows how many more hits Stafford has left in him? So it's time to start thinking about that quarterback of the future there for the Rams. And to me, this guy would be the perfect fit. I know it's his first year as a starter. He's already kind of on the older side. He's not super toolsy, but I can't help but just think that this guy's game is so NFL translatable. Every time I watch him, you see the 18-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. He's taking care of the ball against the best competition in America. if he lasts to number 15 at this point, it might be a little surprising to me. I think this guy is a good shot to actually go much higher than this.
You saw how much it helped him sitting on the bench at Alabama for 3 years, waiting his turn. So certainly doing that behind Matthew Stafford would be helpful as well. Let's go to number 16. The Pittsburgh Steelers select Ohio State wide receiver Carnell Tate, death, taxes, and a Buckeye wide receiver. What makes him the next great Ohio State wide receiver, Ryan?
Emily, as a Steelers fan, I want to thank Mike Renner for making this pick and sending Carnell Tate to Pittsburgh. I want to call him Carnell Lake. He is so good, and it's a quiet Ohio State, not named Marvin Harrison, sneaky, really good wide receiver situation with Carnell, because you watch him and it looks like he's maybe not moving. He's gliding, and he is gliding past defensive backs consistently. He can make contested catches all day long. He's a big, strong receiver at the catch point. He had a fantastic afternoon Saturday against Wisconsin, and that stuff translates immediately, and I know that because when you see every other wide receiver in the NFL that went to Ohio State, except ironically Marvin Harrison Jr., these guys hit the ground running, balling out. In terms of the under the radar nature of what Carnell brings, as much as you can be under the radar at Ohio State, he reminds me a little bit of Emeka Egbuka coming out in that we weren't talking about him as a top 10 pick, and maybe should have been. I think Carnell Tate playing opposite DK Metcalf, whoever the quarterback is in Pittsburgh, we'll find out, automatically upgrades a team that desperately needs a number 2 wide receiver so they can quit playing 13 personnel all the time.
I'm not going to claim to know how to do your job, but I was in Madison this weekend seeing him in person. I agree with everything you guys are saying about him. He is electric. Let's go to number 17, though. The Houston Texans will select Penn State guard Olaivavega Ionane. Not in Ryan's mock, but why is this a name that we need to learn?
I think he's been dominant this year. And I went into the season thinking that it would be a good tackle class and maybe a weak guard class. And now we're like halfway through the season. I think it's a great guard class. I got 4 of them going in my first round and kind of a weak tackle class. So what do I know? But if you're a Houston Texans fan thinking, you know, this is Kenyon Green 2.0, that was the last time we took a guard in the first round and it crashed and burned. No, Ioane's tape is so much better. He's already an NFL caliber pass protector. He's allowed 1 pressure all season long, and he has that ideal guard build. Yeah, you would ideally want to tackle if you're the Texans, but beggars can't be choosers. You got to play the class. It's a good guard class, like I said. Ioane is the best fit you can get here.
And that could change. Who knows? The guard and the tackle class as it continues to evolve and we continue to learn more. That's why we're writing in pencil and not Sharpie here. At 18, the New England Patriots will select Tennessee wide receiver Chris Brazzell, another guy, Ryan, that you didn't have in your mock when we did it 2 weeks ago, but I'm sure you've done your due diligence on him. What do you think?
Yeah, and it's interesting because Mike's talked about the wide receiver class being a high variance about who you may like and the regions you may like him. Brazzell can get after it in terms of long speed, and he is a vertical threat all day long. I do question his ability to get in and out of breaks in the short and intermediate routes. But here's the thing, and I'm going to speak for Mike here, and he can correct me if I'm wrong. The Patriots don't need a Makai Lemon because they have a lot of those guys in that mold. They drafted Kyle Williams. They have Pop Douglas. They need a deep threat for Drake May, who, incidentally, may be the best player on planet Earth with the way he's played over the first month and a half of the season. So I understand the pick here. I don't know if I would take Brazzell in the middle of the first round, but that doesn't mean the Patriots won't do it because they have a history of taking guys that perhaps they zig when other people think they should zag. And again, if he's a deep threat for Drake May and takes care of that part of the field where they need a threat, it makes all the sense in the world as opposed to taking someone like a Makai Lemon, who I love, but that's not his game, play in and play out.
I do want to hear Mike's thought process on this, though. While I appreciate the breakdown from Ryan, what were you thinking between him and Makai Lemon here?
Yeah, I think Ryan actually nailed my thought process on the head there. It's the fact that Drake May is the best deep thrower in football right now. But he doesn't have guys that get open there consistently. He has gone 13 for his last 13 deep throws in terms of being on target. Brazzell's a guy who will give you more opportunities. He will give you more than 2 a game, which is what he's averaging right now. He'll give you 3 to 4 sort-out chances. And Drake May, if he ain't missing them, this is the guy I want to pair him with.
All right, let's go on to number 19, the Cleveland Browns. Remember, they got this pick from Jacksonville in last year's draft, and they will use it to select Oregon defensive tackle Amari Washington. He was the 4th-ranked freakiest athlete per the Athletics Freak List going into this season. So what makes him so freaky, Mike?
The fact that he's 6'3", 338, and has a 36-inch vertical, that's like NBA player type of stuff. And he's 120 pounds more than most of your NBA players. So the guy is explosive off the ball. And if you are the Cleveland Browns and you're looking, you're like, hey, if we get a rookie offensive tackle, because they need an offensive tackle, they need some offensive weapons. it might take that guy a few years, but if I have a guy who is explosive at 338, I add another freak athlete to this defensive line, no one's doing anything to us. They have the makings of something special there with how Mason Grant looked early on this season. If you add a nose tackle with that sort of explosiveness, there really are no holes in this Cleveland Browns defensive line, and they go wave after wave of guys that can get after opposing quarterbacks. So just keep that defense dominant until maybe some reinforcements at quarterback come at some point.
It's a good strategy. I like it. Hope the Browns are thinking that way. At number 20, the Seattle Seahawks will select the aforementioned USC wide receiver Makai Lemon. He averages nearly 16 yards a catch, 6 touchdowns in 7 games. Ryan, what makes him first round worthy?
Emily, quickly, when you asked me during the previous break if I was okay, I was actually looking to read Omari Washington's name with the idea of Mason Graham and Myles Garrett. That's what took my breath away. Ooh. And to your previous point, keep the defense good if you're Jim Schwartz. In terms of Makai Lemon, one of my favorite players in this draft class who got absolutely locked down in South Bend on Saturday. I think this makes a ton of sense in Seattle because just like we talked about with New England, he's a much better fit for what they're doing with Sam Darnold, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Of course, Cooper Kupp is still there. They have Elijah Arroyo, the tight end, who's flashed as a rookie. But Makai Lemon can do a little bit of everything, and he does it at such a high level, unless he's playing Notre Dame in rain. He can return kicks, both punts and kicks, and he has probably helped himself more than any other non-quarterback in this draft class with how he's performed thus far this season. And I love the idea of him going around this range, and especially going to a team like Seattle and Sam Darnold.
Mike, you saw him in person this weekend. Just real quick, what were your thoughts? I know not his best game necessarily, but seeing him up close and personal.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually more impressed with the Notre Dame corner, Leonard Moore. He's a guy draft eligible, but we'll be talking about him this time next year. It was a tough matchup, though, for him. They played a lot of press coverage against him. That's not where he wins. He is a guy that exploits zones, that when he gets a free release, he is basically unguardable with how shifty he is at the top of his routes, but he's lacking the size and frame to consistently be able to get off that press coverage. So that's why I love Seattle, because with their formations and how they operate that offense, they give a lot of free releases to those wideouts.
All right, let's take a little breather and recap the last 6 picks. A little run on receivers in picks 15 through 20. Steelers, Patriots, Seahawks all get a playmaker on offense. Another quarterback is off the board with the Rams reaching for the future with Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. The skill guy is certainly fun to watch, but what about a big guy who has some skill? Where does Kadyn Proctor, the Renaissance player, go? We got more Mock Draft Monday next. Stick with us here on CBS Sports Network. Mock Draft Monday rolls on here on HQ Spotlight. We are working through Mike Renner's mock. Ryan Wilson here. I'm Emily Proud. We have done the top 20 picks, fellas. So let's go to number 21. San Francisco 49ers selecting Utah offensive tackle Caleb Lomu. This is the second Utah offensive tackle taken. Why is he the pick here, Mike?
Yeah, there's a handful of schools that have multiple guys from the same position in this mock draft, in this first round. Caleb Lomu and the Utah tackles are one of them. Now, I have them actually both playing guards in this scenario because he ain't taking over for Trent Williams just yet. Trent Williams will be 38 next season. He looks ageless at this point, but he will be slotting in there at left guard to be your left tackle of the future. I love him at this spot because he is very athletic. He goes to an offensive line where that's at a premium there in Kyle Shanahan's offense, and he knows how to use his hands. I think ideally, he's a tackle at the next level, but he has the versatility and the kind of body type that could really play either position, and it wouldn't surprise me if he stays at either long term. But I love his feet. I love his hands. Only allowed 7 pressures all season long. This guy is a nice pass protector to add on that left side.
Let's keep talking big guys up front here with the number 22 overall pick. The LA Chargers selecting Alabama offensive tackle Kadyn Proctor. Kalen DeBoer, as we know, has been having some fun lining him up at different positions. But as a tackle, Ryan, what makes him great?
Well, I noticed Mike had him as an offensive lineman, so I do wonder if perhaps Mike has some thoughts of kicking him inside. I know, look, here's the thing with Kadyn Proctor. He's 360-ish, quotation marks, and that's why we saw more of him as a running back and a receiver, which is always fun unless you're trying to tackle him. But technically, he could be a lot better. His footwork can sometimes be sloppy, and I think he just relies on that athleticism to the point that it costs him in terms of how technically sound he could actually be. The sky's the limit physically, because very few people on planet Earth look and move like he does. I mean, the man weighs 20 pounds more than J.C. Latham, who is an enormous human being. If he can keep his weight under control and get better with his footwork, he could be a top 10 pick all day long. But if he's going to the Chargers, I would think about playing him at both right guard and right tackle, two positions at once. He's so big. They have so many needs because of injuries. It makes a ton of sense there. But if he can get the weight issue under control and get a little better technically, there's no reason he couldn't be one of the best players in this draft class.
Mike, I saw you nodding along. You slotting him inside?
I'm putting him at guard. Jim Harbaugh's referred to offensive linemen as weapons. This guy is a weapon at guard. At tackle, he's just kind of another guy and is scheme limited. But if you put him at guard, he is going to create holes, and that will give you probably the biggest guard duo in the NFL, maybe the biggest guard duo in NFL history with him and Mekhi Becton.
Jeez, that is insane. Let's go to number 23, the Baltimore Ravens selecting Oregon edge Matayo Uiagalelei. He was highly regarded coming out of high school, continued that success in college. But why is he a first-round talent, Mike?
Yeah, you've just seen him stack year on year and get better. And at 6'5", 272, he ticks the boxes of what you want to see at defensive end. And I love that he's only 20 years old. He's one of the youngest players in the entire draft class. He hasn't turned 21 until next July. So at that size, he could continue to grow into like a 3-4 defensive end, even on the interior. He could be one of those hybrid defensive linemen that I talked about off the top that everyone wants in their defense. And if you're the Ravens, you just want any defensive lineman in your defense. It doesn't matter what position this guy plays with how this defensive line has looked this season without Justin Madubuike. After they traded away Odafe Oweh, there's just no one walking through that door that can affect opposing quarterbacks. This is a guy that can.
So no champagne celebrations on draft night, making it all the more impressive that he's doing this at 20 years old. At number 24, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles. Ryan, he's not in your mock. Well, he wasn't, I guess, 2 weeks ago. Things can change. But another Ohio State linebacker taken in the first round. What is your evaluation of him?
Oh, I love his game. And here's the thing. Over the summer, I questioned his ability to play the linebacker position. He's a former safety, and it looked like at times he was playing with blinders on or playing through a straw. His field of vision and his ability to process has gotten so much better this season. He's not outplaying Arvell Reese, but he is having an impactful season for the Buckeyes. Mike talked about Arvell's ability to rush off the edge and how he can win consistently. That's not necessarily Sonny's game, but he can blitz through the A and B gap and be incredibly disruptive. He moves well in space. He can drop into coverage, and he's a great tackler in space. And, you know, we talk about the Buccaneers, what they need. They need very little offensively outside of tight end, but I think if you're looking to replace Levante David, there are worse places to look than Sonny Styles, and I think he has a very real chance of sneaking into that top 32.
At 25, the Broncos will select another linebacker, Georgia linebacker C.J. Allen. What's the breakdown on him, Mike?
Allen's the best linebacker in this draft class against the run. He is a tone setter in every sense of the word at the second level. And if you're the Denver Broncos, you don't have a lot of needs. Your biggest need is probably weapon. You need a wideout for Bo Nix. But for my money, this receiver class cooked already. The 4 wide receivers that I take in the first round, they're gone. So if you're the Denver Broncos, you can't just go reach for one. Maybe you draft one on day 2 at this rate. But C.J. Allen next to Dre Greenlaw gives you a butt-kicking second level to go with that butt-kicking first level. That's probably the best defensive line in football this year. Yet again, he's a guy that can blitz as well as play the run. If you just add more guys like that to this defense, you're just going to sustain the success year after year after year.
Let's go to the 26th pick. The Los Angeles Rams on the clock again, and they will select Clemson cornerback Avion Terrell. This is the second pick for the Rams. They got their quarterback in Ty Simpson earlier, but why him here, Ryan?
So if you told me that the Rams would get Ty Simpson and Avion Terrell, I would grade that an A+ draft because you are checking boxes both for the long term at quarterback and the immediate near-term needs in the secondary. And Avion, AJ's brother, who's a standout cornerback and former first-round pick of the Falcons, he's not as big as his brother. He's going to weigh in around 180-ish. He plays much bigger than that. He plays primarily outside. He is great in man coverage. He is great in terms of staying in phase. Coming downhill, he is really good at run support. So he doesn't play like he is 180. We talked a lot about Devin Witherspoon playing much bigger than his listed weight. I think that's Avion Terrell. He's not quite, doesn't play with quite that edge, but I think he's close, and I think he's going to be a first-round pick because of it, even though, as we've discussed this whole nearly hour here, the Clemson team would probably wish they were playing better. It's not from lack of production from the 3 guys that have been drafted thus far on defense from Clemson.
Still makes absolutely no sense, but good to know that those guys are not hurting their draft stock based on the team. It is a team game, but still surprising. So many first-rounders out of Clemson. At 27, the Indianapolis Colts will select Texas A&M defensive end Cassius Howell. He leads the SEC in sacks with 8.5. I mean, enough said, Mike.
Yeah, the Colts need someone across from Latu. He looks like he's becoming the player they thought when they drafted him, top 15 last season, but no one else. Kwity Paye has not developed into that guy they thought they were getting in the first round a few years back. They really need some pass rushing help because they have all these big leads, right? They are playing from ahead pretty much every single week and still can't get after opposing quarterbacks. Howell can. You mentioned it. The 8.5 sacks, fourth most in college football. The guy gets after it, and he's day one NFL ready. Now, we're going to talk arm length with him. He is verified under 31-inch arms. But I don't think a lot of people care about Micah Parsons' arms at this point, which are 31.5. Not a lot of people care about Nick Herbig's arms at this point, which were just a hair over 31 inches. So he's in that sort of mold for me where he's twitchy enough, he knows how to rush the passer enough that this guy's going to get it done at the next level.
All righty, there we go. 49ers and Chargers grabbing some tackles. We got 2 more linebackers off the board and a little bit of pass rush help for the Ravens by way of Mateo Uiagalelei. Also for the Colts, Cassius Howell off the edge. We have more mock draft coming up. Stay with us. Back here on HQ Spotlight, we're working our way through Mike Renner's mock draft. Ryan Wilson here with us to talk about some of these picks. And guys, final 5 picks, starting with number 28, the Philadelphia Eagles select Oregon tight end Kenyon Sadiq. We got a first tight end off the board. Why do you think the Eagles pick him here?
First of all, they watched the Rutgers game because he went absolutely nuclear. It was fun to see Kenyon play like we thought he could play week in and week out. He had been off to a slowish start. I wouldn't say it was a bad start, but the expectations weren't quite met the first 6 or 7 weeks of the season. But on Saturday, he went absolutely crazy. Number one, he looks the part of an inline tight end, but they move him all over the place. He plays in the slot. He'll play out wide. He's an absolute force on special teams. He can block in line if you want him to. And we talk all the time about A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert. They don't have a lot outside of those 2 players, and Dallas Goedert could very well be playing in his last year in Philly. So I am all in on Kenyon Sadiq and getting the most out of him in this offense where he won't have to be the number 1 or number 2 or even number 3 target on an offense that maybe it's found its form after Sunday's game.
Yeah, 4 receptions for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think that constitutes as going off for a young Kenyon Sadiq. At number 29, the Cowboys are on the clock. This is from the Micah Parsons trade. They will use the pick to select Tennessee cornerback Colton Hood. As a Vols fan, I have seen a fumble recovery and a pick 6 from him. So what are you seeing on tape?
I'm seeing a guy who doesn't lose a lot. You know, he's allowing a completion percentage against of 41.9%. It's his first year as a starter. He was at Colorado last year. No real shame sitting behind Travis Hunter there, right? But he's got his opportunity now in the SEC, and he looks like a man corner at the next level. And if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you need any corner you can get. You honestly need any position defensively at this point. That's how you get probably the worst defense in all of the NFL, but specifically corner, because Trayvon Diggs is going to be gone after this season, which really leaves you with just DaRon Bland in the fold there. So Hood's a guy that can step in right away for you. And this is now the 3rd pair of teammates at the same position. With his teammate Jermod McCoy going earlier, we had the Ohio State linebackers, we had the Utah tackles, and now the Tennessee cornerbacks. And Ryan gets the 4th one. So this could be a unique first round in that regard.
You mentioned it. Stories aplenty there for all the networks broadcasting the draft, because with the number 30 pick, the Lions select another Texas Tech defensive end, Romello Height. Maybe a lighter frame here at 235, but what do you like about him on the end, Ryan?
So if you put Romello Height in David Bailey's body, he might be the first player taken, because the edge with which this man plays and the motor, he does not play like he knows he is 228 and 6'2" and change. When you talk to teams, they're going to say, where do we play him? And I would just say this. Brian Burns coming out of Florida State Played at about 230, 235 his final year there. Got to 249 at the combine because he drank 20 pounds of water, and now he's dominant. So I don't want to oversell the fact that he physically doesn't meet the standards, but he is so electric and he wins consistently that I think sometimes you have to throw history out the window in terms of what the physical traits are telling you. Just watch the tape, because he gets after it each and every play, and I think he's actually better than David Bailey. Unfortunately, he doesn't weigh 252. He weighs 228.
Some, no issues with physicality here when it comes to the number 31 pick. The Buffalo Bills selecting Oregon guard Emmanuel Pregnon. He's 6'5", 318. He went to Wyoming out of high school, didn't have a lot of offers, transferred to USC, will finish his career at Oregon. So, Mike, what has he developed into?
He's developed into a superior pass-protecting guard. And if you're the Bills, you got to learn from, like, the Bengals' mistakes. And they've built one of the best offensive lines in front of Josh Allen, but you got to keep it that way. And to keep it that way, it means investing. They really didn't last year, despite potentially being thin here as this season wears on. So I think next year's the year where they start loading up on guys to protect Josh Allen. And this is one of the guys. 2 pressures all season long. And he's, like you said, worked his way up from low-level college football to USC, now at the big time at Oregon, and every single year seemingly gotten better. Just look at the picks. The guy's built like a Greek god. That's how you want your offensive guards to look, and he has the kind of physical traits to even go higher than this if we continue to see the level of play we've seen from him the first half of this year.
Yeah, he'll certainly have the stage to do it now at Oregon. Finishing up with the 32nd overall pick, the Kansas City Chiefs will select Ohio State defensive tackle Caden McDonald. Ryan, he was not in your mock 2 weeks ago, but maybe how close was he, and just overall, what do you think of this pick?
Oh, at 6'3" and 330 and change, he's the best run defender in this draft class. I don't even know if it's close. He is going to win against double teams. He is going to win against whatever scheme you're running, whether it's gap or zone. He is consistently in the backfield against the run, and he is so disruptive when it comes to that. Look, he is not going to be a pass rush machine. He's not going to be Aaron Donald winning consistently and finding his way into the backfield in passing situations. But if that's not what you need, and you need someone to clog up lanes, that's exactly what McDonald will give you. He's a lot of fun to watch. I think he's going to get better. His best football is ahead of him. And if he fits a particular need for your team, I could certainly understand him finding his way into the top 32.
Just gets better. That's certainly what you want out of your first round pick. So there you have it. The Eagles snag the top tight end, and the draft ends with 3 big guys. We'll bring you some final thoughts on Mike Renner's mock draft next here on HQ Spotlight. Stay with us.